Today on More Doug DeMuro, I'm going to talk about the experience of driving a $1 million car or more. I filmed $3 million+ cars this month, Porsche 959, the Koenigsegg, and then yesterday the Bugatti Veyron went up. And obviously a lot of people are curious about what it's like. What do I have to do to drive a $1 million car? So today I'm going to discuss how I get these $1 million cars to film videos with them. I'm going to talk about insurance, which seems to be the thing that most people are curious about. And then I'm going to talk about the emotional aspect, what it's like mentally to drive a $1 million car. Now I'm going to start by talking about how I get these $1 million cars to drive. I covered this in a previous video where I talked about it in greater detail, but I want to mention it again just for a minute, just to refresh people's memories, because I think this is an important topic and it's still something I get questions about. I don't reach out to people to film cars like this. And it's not out of arrogance. Well, I'm so big, they can reach out to me. It's actually the exact opposite. I think that reaching out to someone and asking to drive their $1 million car is kind of an entitled behavior. Like, oh, I'm Doug DeMuro, of course you'll let me drive your car. I think that's totally unacceptable. And I don't like to do that stuff. And I think it's much better if the person who has the car reaches out to me. They know what I do, they know what I'm about. I don't ever want to make anybody feel uncomfortable by kind of forcing their hand and making them answer me, or will you let me drive your car? There's a guy local at my local Cars and Coffee who has a collection of crazy high-end Ferraris, and I've talked to him and he's talked to me, and he knows who I am and what I do, and he's never offered to let me drive the cars to review them, and I've never asked, and that is totally fine, because there are a million great reasons why you don't want to let some dude with shorts and 2 t-shirts drive your hypercar, and I totally get that, and there's no pressure. So that's generally how I go about getting the cars, and I think that's important to mention. Now, for those people who do give me their cars, then the next question, of course, is insurance. And I'm going to spend most of my time in this video on that topic. Insurance is a question I get a lot, especially when you film a car that costs $1 million like the Bugatti Veyron. If you crash that, that's a bad day. That's a tough afternoon for you. Now, insurance to me is incredibly important for 3 major reasons. The number one reason is obvious. It's the reason that everybody gets insurance, and that is to make yourself whole if something happens. If you crash a car, to make yourself whole for the damages. If you injure someone and you have to pay them something because they're hurt, then to make yourself whole so you don't financially lose any money. That's obviously the reason most people get insurance, and that's a big one. But when you're on my level, you get insurance for a couple of other reasons too. One is to protect my reputation. If I'm driving around in a car and I crash it and it gets on the news or on Instagram, people are like, oh, Doug crashed a car. Hey, I was insured for it. I got paid back. Yeah, it would be bad. I mean, that wouldn't be a fun day. But at the very least, the owners know, hey, he's insured. I got paid back. Yeah, he crashed my STI or whatever, but I got the money back. So, it's okay. It was an emotional loss, but not a financial one. And then there's a third reason, which is I think having insurance means less risk for the car owner when they reach out to me. I don't know that every car owner even knows that I'm insured, but I am a very cautious person, and so I am insured. And so when a car owner reaches out to me, some of them do ask, hey, are you insured? And the answer is yes, and I think that makes them feel a little better about tossing me the keys and just letting me go, which is what most of the car owners do. So first thing I want to talk about with insurance is, why can't I just use someone else's policy? If I have a car and I let you drive it, generally speaking, in most states, you're insured under my policy. It's me and then, people who are permissive use is what it's called. And I let you use my car, you crash it, you're still insured because I had insurance. So why can't I just use their insurance policy? And the reason is because I'm driving the car for a commercial purpose. I'm driving the car to film my little YouTube video, which is my job. For a car like the Golf R, if I had crashed that, the insurance company would have been like, yeah, whatever, they would have paid out. A $40,000 claim to an insurance company is not really that big of a deal. They wouldn't have asked a lot of questions, and that claim would have been paid. But on a really expensive car, even a $100,000, $200,000 car, not just a $1 million car, the insurance company might start asking questions. Wait, who was driving? Why? What were they doing? What was this random Doug DeMuro? He's not related to you? You put him behind the wheel? I don't know about that. They might start asking questions. And if they find out that I was filming a video and that's my job, and I was reviewing the car for commercial purposes to make money, to make a living as I do, they might say, wait a minute, commercial use is not covered under your personal insurance policy, we're not covering. And so if I crashed a 959 and it wasn't covered, that would be a really bad day. So I had to go and get my own insurance. Now, a lot of YouTubers don't have insurance. I know this as a fact. And that kind of scares me because a lot of YouTubers are out driving other people's cars and reviewing them. And again, if it's a cheap car, I really don't think the insurance company is going to cause a big stink. But it's going to be a bad day when some YouTuber who doesn't have an insurance policy to drive one of these cars crashes it, and then there becomes an enormous amount of litigation. You know, the insurance company doesn't cover it. Who's at fault? The YouTuber doesn't have enough money to write a check for a car they were driving. It would be really, really bad, really expensive, and very visible. And you could pretty much guarantee that that YouTuber won't be getting another car again to drive for a video. No one will ever lend that person a car again. So it's important to have insurance. Now, obviously, if I crashed a car, 959, it would be a horrible day, but only emotionally. Financially, you know, I'd be covered, so at least the damage would be limited to the emotional aspect. So I had to get a commercial insurance policy because this is my business. Now, these policies are tremendously difficult to find. When I lived in Philadelphia, I just started calling up insurers. Hey, I'm a YouTuber and I drive other people's $1 million cars. Can you insure me? I went through 20 people and they're all like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. No, you can't be insured. Some of them offered me policies, but only in one location. They said, yeah, we can insure you, but only if you film these videos at your house. And I'm like, well, I fly all the country to drive these cars. So they said no. Eventually, the way that I found policies was insurance agents who know who I am contacted me and they're like, hey, you want to drive my car? By the way, I'm an insurance agent. I'd be like, you know, maybe I want to drive your car, but I got another problem for you. And then I kind of sent them off. They have all these insurance contacts at different levels. And they were able to figure it out. My insurance agent in the Philadelphia area, he knew a bunch of insurers and he was able to get me a policy. When I moved to California, same kind of deal. It was a local insurance agent in San Diego. He knew some people and we were able to get a production insurance policy, which exists for movie shooting and, you know, documentary shooting, but also for lower budget productions like YouTube videos. Now, the policy is not tremendously cheap. In fact, it cost me about $10,000 a year to be insured. That's not cheap, but it's also not expensive when you think about what they're covering. They're covering risk for some of these really expensive cars. And so to me, that's actually a pretty good deal. And obviously it's helpful that it's also tax deductible because of course it's a business expense. Now, my particular insurance company insures at least one other YouTuber. Now, I don't want to get into specifics here because I don't really want to unmask anybody if they don't want to be talked about or whatever. But I was thrilled to find out that there are at least some other car YouTubers who are pursuing these policies, even though all of us aren't. Now, my insurance policy covers me with no maximum car value. So any potential car that I review can be covered. But if I review a really expensive car, there are a couple of things that have to happen. First, I have to let them know ahead of time that I'm doing it. And second, on super expensive cars, I've been told, this hasn't happened yet, but I've been told they may raise my deductible. So the deductible is what you pay basically out of pocket before your insurance kicks in. So for example, if I crashed the 959, it was worth $1 million and my deductible was $10,000, I would pay $10,000, the insurance company would pay the remaining $990,000, right? So on really expensive cars, they may raise my deductible just because that gives them a little bit less risk. Now, I don't know what my deductible is, I'd have to check the policy, but I know it's pretty high. It is something like $10,000, which means that like just a little scratch on a car isn't covered. If I scratch or dent a car, it's not going to hit that deductible amount. I'm going to be paying that out of pocket. But that's fine with me. I really wanted to make sure that the car was covered. Little stuff I could handle. You know, $5,000 if I scrape a wheel, that would be bad, but nowhere near as bad as if I crash the car. That's the most important thing. So my policy covers me for that. And also it covers me for liability if I crash into someone else and hurt them while I'm working, filming my videos. Now, everyone wants to know about the insurance stuff, but one thing that I don't think a lot of people think about, certainly something I didn't think about, is the emotional aspect. What is it like mentally to drive a $1 million car? And one group of people asked me this question, and that's adults, older adults specifically. Kids who watch my videos, they're just like, what do you mean? You get in a Koenigsegg, you drive, it's fun. But adults know, especially older ones, how expensive these cars are, how many years of life you'd have to work to get to a point where you own one of these cars. And so they're always like, what's it like to drive the F40? And I'm like, oh, it's fun. They're like, no, what's it like? And the answer is, it's interesting. I've only felt in awe of the car I was about to drive on 2 occasions. And that was the Ferrari F40 and the Bugatti Veyron. And kind of the 959. as well. And that might surprise you because the most expensive cars I've done, the Koenigsegg, the Pagani, the 918 Spider, but those cars I wasn't as much. When I came to film the F40 and I was at LBI Limited, this dealer in Philadelphia who gets the craziest stuff, they pulled the cover off and I was like, oh my God. Because this is a car I've seen in pictures and on posters and in car shows and concours events my whole life. And here I am about to get in it and drive it. And it was the same for the Veyron. That car's been out 15 years. I've been seeing it my whole adult life, idolizing it, never having been in one. And then I'm about to drive it. The Huayra and the Koenigsegg are also tremendously special cars, but they're not old enough yet for me mentally, I think, to have that feeling of awe, like, I can't believe this. You know, the 918 Spider, the Chiron, those cars just came out. And so it's like, okay, it just came out, now I'm reviewing it. It hasn't built up that mental sort of like iconic car god idol status that the F40 has and that the 959 has. And so I'm sure that one day I will feel that way about those cars, the Koenigsegg. But right now it's like, oh, this is a hot new thing, it's cool, but it doesn't quite give me that like I'm in the presence of this is scary kind of thing. Like the F40, like the 959, like the Veyron. And in fact, in my 959 video, if you watch the intro, you can see I kind of stumble over what I say. I kind of giggle because I'm so awestruck about what car this is. Check it out. This is a 1988 Porsche 959. Now, I ended up filming that a second time, and it was straight with no chuckle. But when I watched it later when I was editing it, I left that version in because I felt like that was more genuine. That was how I was really feeling at that time. With the Koenigsegg and the Huayra and the 918, they're still amazing cars. But I think the older stuff just gives me that feeling. You've been hearing about it 10, 20, 30 years. You know how special it is. And now you're driving it. And those are the cars that really mentally freak me out. Now, regardless, the other stuff, when you're driving, it's all hands on deck mentally. Driving the Huayra, you don't think about anything else. You're driving, you're talking to the camera, that's it. I don't think about where I'm going. I let the owner tell me. They're usually in the passenger seat in the really expensive cars. I only want to be focused on the road, the cars around me, and what I'm talking about. It is probably the most mentally taxing experience that I've ever personally gone through, driving those really, really expensive cars and trying to make a video out of it at the same time, just because you don't want to mess up and you have to be really cognizant the whole time of what's going on. And I would say that's the biggest takeaway. What is it like to drive one of those cars? You don't enjoy it. I tell people the best moment of my F40 video was when I handed back the keys. I wasn't kidding. It was fun to drive that car. That car is amazing to drive, whatever, but I don't want to be the guy who wrecks the F40. And so you don't enjoy it. You're there, you're flooring it. It's cool. It's a fun experience. It feels great. It's thrilling, but that's a lot. That's a lot. I feel like I have more fun just kind of throwing around a GT4 or even a 458, only a $200,000 car. Million plus car, it's a lot. It requires a lot of respect and a lot of mental energy going into driving it. And so that is what it's like to drive $1 million car. That's sort of the structural aspect of it, the mental aspect of it, and now you know. And that question came from you. I got a lot of people asking me, what's it like? What's the insurance like? And if you have a question you want to see me answer here on More Doug DeMuro, email me, moredougdemuro@gmail.com, and I might get to your question in a future video.